The sky above the colony city was dark and gray. Rain fell like small needles from the clouds, cold and steady. The streets were muddy, and trash floated in the water. People walked fast, covering their heads, not looking around. They were too busy, too cold, too afraid, and no one looked at the small girl sitting near the trash bin. She was not human. Her skin was a soft shade of blue, with tiny silver spots like stars. Her hair was tangled and wet, sticking to her cheeks. Her big glowing eyes stared at a metal bowl in front of her. It was empty, just like her stomach. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Her mother was gone, taken by the sickness that spread in the lower zones. No one helped. No one even came to take the body, so the girl had left, walked for hours, and found this busy street. She thought maybe here someone would notice her, someone would give food, someone would care. But the world kept walking past her, like she was invisible. Some threw scraps near her, old food or crushed wrappers. Others made faces and whispered things like dirty alien or street thing. She didn't speak back. She didn't move. She just waited, holding the bowl with both tiny hands. Then came the human. He was tall, with a rough face and tired eyes. His coat was torn at the bottom, and his boots were wet with mud. He looked like a trader, carrying a heavy pack on his back. He walked past her at first, like everyone else, but something made him stop. He looked back. The girl looked up at the same time. Their eyes met. She didn't beg. She didn't speak. She just looked at him, shivering but calm. Something about her eyes made the man feel strange inside. He reached into his coat and pulled out a wrapped sandwich. He crouched and held it out to her. The girl stared at it. Then, slowly, she took it, her fingers cold and shaking, but before she ate, she said something. Her voice was soft, almost like a whisper. "Can I be your daughter?" The man blinked. He wasn't sure he heard her right. He asked, "What did you say?" She looked down, hugging the sandwich close. "I won't ask again," she said. "Just wanted to try once." He stood there, frozen. He had seen war, hunger, aliens, and monsters, but nothing ever shook him like those words. "Can I be your daughter?" Not "can I have food?" Not "help me," but something deeper, something that broke his heart. He looked around. People were watching now. Some were frowning, others whispering, but he didn't care. He took off his wet coat and gently wrapped it around her small shoulders. Then he picked up her bowl, now muddy and bent, and said, "Come on, kid." She followed him like a quiet shadow. They walked through narrow alleys, past bright shops and quiet corners. He took her to a small food stall where he was known. The owner frowned when he saw the girl. "She's not one of us," the owner muttered. The man said nothing. "Just put money on the counter. Hot soup and clean bread," he said. "For my daughter." The girl's eyes widened. He had said it. He had called her his daughter. She sat at the table, holding the hot bowl with both hands. Steam rose, and she breathed it in like it was gold. Then she began to eat, slow at first, then faster. Tears mixed with the rain on her cheeks. The man watched her silently. He didn't know her story. He didn't know her name, but he knew one thing. No child should ever sit alone in the rain. No child should ever have to ask what she asked. And somewhere deep in his heart, something old and cold began to melt. She wasn't just some random alien girl, not anymore. She was something more now. A promise, a second chance, a reason to keep going. He looked at her again. She looked back at him, eyes brighter now. She smiled, a small, tired smile. "Thank you," she whispered. He nodded. "Let's get you dry and warm," he said. Outside, the rain kept falling. But under the tiny food stall roof, a new story had begun. A story of a man who had lost everything and a girl who had nothing. Two strangers, now something more. Now, maybe. Family, asterisk, the small room was quiet except for the sound of water dripping outside. The human, his name was Marcus, sat on the floor beside the old heater. He had given the alien girl a blanket. Thick and soft, she was curled up on a folded towel. Half asleep, but still watching him. Her eyes didn't blink often, just stared, wide and glowing. Marcus didn't know what to say. He had brought her to his place, a small living box at the edge of the colony. It wasn't much. But it was dry, it was warm, and it was safe. He poured warm broth into a metal cup and walked over. "Here," he said, gently. The girl took it with both hands. Drinking carefully. "You've got a name?" he asked, sitting near her. She hesitated. Then looked down. "My mother called me Leary," she whispered. "I think." "You think?" Marcus asked, raising an eyebrow. She nodded slowly. "She died when I was small." Before I could remember everything, Marcus said nothing, just nodded. He didn't want to push her, but questions were building in his head. Why was she alone? Why was she called cursed by the other aliens on the street? Why had no one come looking for her? He noticed scars on her arms, thin lines that looked like marks from chains. Her clothes were still damp, so he handed her one of his old shirts. It hung loose on her, but she smiled a little as she wore it. "Warm," she said softly. Holding the sleeves, Marcus tried to smile back. She was just a kid, maybe 8 or 9 by human years. And yet her eyes looked older, like someone who had seen too much. He stood up and moved to the tiny kitchen corner. There were 2 cans of beans, 1 old loaf of bread, and a packet of tea. That was all he had left. He scratched his head, wondering how long this kindness could last. But then he heard her voice again. "Are you going to send me away in the morning?" she asked. Marcus turned, surprised. "Why would I do that?" "Because everyone does," Leary said, her voice flat. "They feed me once, give me a coat, then say, 'Go now.'" Marcus felt a twist in his chest. He had no plan, no idea what he was doing. But something inside him whispered, "Don't let this one go." He sat back down and said, "You're staying here tonight. No one's sending you away." Leary looked at him for a long time, her expression unreadable. Then she whispered, "Okay," and laid her head down. She didn't sleep easily. Marcus noticed her flinch in her sleep, curl up tighter whenever thunder rumbled outside. She'd murmur something in a language he didn't understand. He wondered if it was her native tongue or just the voice of old memories, too painful to forget. In the morning, she was still there, still curled up in the shirt, still holding the metal cup like a treasure. Marcus made tea and offered a slice of bread. Leary took it gratefully, eating slow, like she didn't want it. To end, they sat in silence for a while. Then she asked, "Why did you help me?" Marcus sipped his tea, then said, "Because someone once helped me." He didn't say more, and she didn't ask. Some silences are more comforting than words. Later that day, Marcus took her out. She walked close to him, always half a step behind. People stared. Some whispered. A few looked angry. A human man walking with a dirty alien girl. It didn't fit their idea of right. But Marcus didn't care. Leary kept her head low, but when he gently placed his hand on her shoulder, she smiled. They went to a small clothing stall. Marcus spent the last of his money on a clean dress and shoes for her. She touched the fabric like it was made of stars. "You really bought this?" "For me?" she asked, shocked. "Of course." He said, "Daughters don't walk barefoot." Her hands shook as she held the clothes, and she whispered, "Thank you," again and again, like a song. Back home, they worry, washed up and changed. When she stepped out wearing the dress, Marcus almost didn't recognize her. She looked brighter, more alive, still thin, still small, but now glowing with something new hope. She asked if she could help around the room. Marcus showed her how to sweep and heat water. She listened carefully, always eager to learn. By evening, she had arranged all the cups by size and cleaned the tiny floor space. That night, Marcus sat reading a datapad. Leary sat beside him, her small legs crossed. Suddenly, she looked up and said, "If I had a real father, I think he would be like you." Marcus didn't know what to say. His throat felt tight. He reached out and placed his hand gently on her head. "You don't have to imagine any more," he said. She smiled and leaned against him. For the first time in a long while, Marcus didn't feel alone, and neither did she. They had no money, no plan. But in that tiny room, something stronger was growing. Not just shelter, not just survival, but something bigger: family. The night air was quiet, too quiet. The lights in the colony flickered, casting long shadows through the alley windows inside the small room. Marcus slept on the floor with a blanket pulled to his chest. Across from him, on the old mattress, Leary was curled up tight. Her small hands clutched the edge of the blanket like it might disappear. It had been a long day. Marcus had taken her to the nearby clinic to check her health. The doctor, a human woman, gave them strange looks, but did the checkup. Leary didn't speak the whole time. When they left, she simply said, "People don't like me. I know." Marcus had sighed and told her, "I don't care what they like. I care what you need." She smiled at that, but her smile never fully reached her eyes. Now, deep in the night, something stirred. Leary turned in her sleep, then whimpered. Then she gasped, her body twitching. Marcus's eyes opened slowly, his soldier instinct kicking in. He sat up, blinking in the darkness. "Leary." He called softly. Suddenly, a piercing scream tore through the room. Marcus jumped to his feet. Leary was sitting upright, but her eyes were glowing brighter than ever before. Strange light pulsed across her skin, symbols, shapes, runes moving. Like fire underwater, she was shaking, her face pale with terror. "No," she cried. "Don't take meat. Don't touch me again." Marcus rushed to her side. "It's okay," he said. Kneeling beside her, "It's just a dream." But the light kept growing, filling the room like a lantern. The walls flickered, and the floor hummed with energy. This was no normal nightmare. This was something else. Something deep and ancient. Leary's hands clutched her chest, her back arched, and more glowing lines appeared on her arms and neck. Marcus didn't know what to do. He had no tools, no medicine, no idea how alien biology worked. He only had one thing: his voice. He gently wrapped his arms around her. She gasped again, but the shaking slowed. He whispered, "You're safe now. No one's hurting you. Not while I'm here." The glowing began to dim. The symbols faded slowly, like dust in sunlight. Leary slumped forward, breathing hard. Her forehead touched Marcus's chest. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't want you to see that." Marcus held her tighter. "It's okay," he said. "I'm glad I did." He waited until her breathing calmed, until her body stopped glowing. Then he carefully laid her back on the mattress, covering her with the blanket. He didn't sleep again that night. Instead, he sat beside her with a worn datapad. He typed in the symbols he remembered seeing. They weren't just lights. They were language alien, old and powerful. The search took hours, and most of it made no sense. But finally, he found something. A match, barely a fragment from a scanned artifact buried in a forgotten archive. The symbols meant first blood, air, and sacrifice. Marcus stared at the screen. The girl sleeping near him wasn't just a child in need. She was something more. Maybe even something royal. But that raised more questions. Why was she on a colony street? Why was she starving, filthy, alone? Why would royalty be treated like trash? He looked over at Leary. She looked peaceful now, her face calm under the blanket. But even in sleep, her fingers twitched slightly, like she was always ready to run. Morning came slow. The first rays of pale light entered the room. Leary opened her eyes, blinking up at Marcus. "Did I glow again?" she asked quietly. He nodded. Yes. She looked away, ashamed. "I hate when it happens. They always said I was cursed." "Who said that?" Marcus asked. She hesitated, then whispered, "The ones at the lab." That word lab made Marcus's blood go cold. He leaned closer, voice soft. "What kind of lab? Leary?" She shook her head. "I don't want to remember." He didn't. "Push her instead," he said. "You're not cursed." She looked up at him, confused. "You're different, and maybe that scares people, but it doesn't scare me," he said. "You're not a monster. You're just a kid who deserves to be safe." For the first time, Leary let out a real, full smile. Not a fake one, not a sad one. This one was real. She wiped her tears and whispered, "You're strange." "For a human," Marcus chuckled. "I've heard that before," as the colony outside began its day. Marcus stood and stretched. He looked at the datapad one more time. He didn't understand everything, but he knew one thing now. This girl was more than just lost. She was important. And someone out there might still be looking for her. He didn't know if they were friends or enemies, but whatever happened next, he would protect her, no matter what, no matter who came, because when she asked to be his daughter, he had said nothing, but in his heart, he had already answered, the colony. Sky was red that morning, not because of sunrise, but because something heavy was coming. Marcus felt it in the air. It was too quiet, too still. Even the birds didn't fly over the buildings, and the wind smelled like metal and heat. Inside the small room, Leary helped Marcus sweep the floor. She hummed softly, the same tune she'd sung the night before. Her voice was sweet, calm, like a forgotten lullaby. She looked brighter, stronger. But Marcus's heart was heavy. He hadn't told her what he found in the datapad. Not yet. He didn't want to scare her again. Just as he opened his mouth to ask if she was hungry, a deep hum shook the walls. Then came the roar of engines. Not old cargo ships, not colony vehicles, but war engines, fast and sharp. Marcus rushed to the window and peeked through the dirty glass. 3 dark ships hovered just above the outer street, sleek, black, covered in strange markings. Symbols he didn't recognize except one. It matched the ones that had glowed on Leary's skin. Soldiers began to drop from the ships. Not human soldiers. These ones were tall, armored. Their faces hidden behind silver masks. Each step they took made the ground shake. And they were walking toward his building. Marcus turned. "Fast, Leary, listen to me," he said. "Serious now." She looked up, confused. "They're here, the ones looking for you." Her smile vanished. Her hands dropped the broom. She whispered, "The hunters." Marcus grabbed her hand and pulled her into the small storage room. He opened the floor hatch and helped her climb in. "You stay quiet, no matter what," he said. Her eyes were wide, scared. "But they'll hurt you," she said, trembling. He smiled softly. "I've faced worse than words." He shut the hatch and covered it with an old rug. Then he stood and walked to the door. The knock came exactly 3 seconds later. Heavy, slow, powerful, like it didn't care what stood behind it, because it could break anything. Marcus opened the door. 4 soldiers stood there, weapons on. Their backs, one stepped forward, taller than the rest. His armor was darker. With red lines across his chest, he spoke in a calm but sharp voice. "We're looking for a child." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Lots of children in the colony." He replied, "This one is not like others," the soldier said. "She is small, blue-skinned, and carries markings not meant for her." Marcus frowned. "Haven't seen anyone like that?" The soldier stepped inside without asking. He scanned the room slowly. His eyes moved over every object. His gaze paused on the rug for a second, but then continued. Another soldier stepped forward with a strange device. It beeped quietly as it turned toward the wall. Marcus crossed his arms. "You got papers for this search?" he asked. The lead soldier turned. "This building is outside your colony's border." He replied, "We follow the old laws, not yours." Marcus felt his stomach twist. They could take whatever they wanted, kill whoever they wanted, and leave. Before anyone could stop them, the beeping grew louder. One soldier stepped toward the rug. Marcus moved fast. He accidentally kicked over a pile of tools. Metal crashed loudly, making everyone flinch. "Oops," he said, forcing a grin. The distraction worked. The soldier moved away from the rug and helped clean up the mess. The leader gave Marcus one last look. "If she is found here, you will suffer," he warned, big words from someone in borrowed air. Marcus replied. The soldier paused, then turned and walked out. The others followed. Marcus waited at the door, heart racing. Only when the sound of engines faded did he close it. He rushed to the hatch and pulled it open. Leary climbed out slowly, her eyes full of fear. "I thought they'd take you," she whispered. "They almost did," Marcus said, then smiled. "But you were safe, like I promised." She wrapped her arms around him, her small body shaking. "I don't want to run again," she said. Marcus held her close. "Then we don't run," he said softly. "We fight smart." He now knew the truth. She wasn't just lost, she was being hunted, and those markings on her body, they weren't random. They were royal, sacred, and powerful. Whatever power she carried, whatever future they feared, they would kill to stop it. But Marcus had made a silent vow. If the universe wanted to take her again, it would have to go through him first. The colony was no longer safe. Marcus knew it the moment the black ships returned. This time, they didn't knock. They scanned every home, every person, every shadow, looking for her. For Leary, the girl who once sat quietly with an empty bowl, now, she was the hunted key to something bigger, something powerful, ancient, and dangerous. So Marcus made a decision. They had to leave, not just the colony, but the entire planet. It wasn't easy. Marcus had no ship, no money, and no plan. But he had friends from his past people who still owed him favors. He reached out to a contact named Rel, a smuggler with a half-broken cargo ship. Rel laughed when Marcus explained the situation. "You want to take a glowing alien girl through border space?" "Yes," Marcus said, "and I'm paying with everything I have." Rel didn't laugh after that. He just said, "Meet me at the West Dock by midnight." Leary didn't cry when they left the little room, but she looked back 3 times. "That was the first place I ever felt warm," she whispered. Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we'll find another," he said. "One even warmer." The docks were dark and quiet. Rel was already inside his ship, fixing wires. With his teeth, he looked rough. One eye replaced with a glowing lens. When he saw Leary, his fake eye blinked. "That's her?" "That's her," Marcus said. Rel whistled. "She doesn't look like trouble," Marcus replied. "That's what makes her dangerous." The ship groaned as it lifted from the surface. Leary pressed her face against the small window. She watched the colony become smaller and smaller. Then it vanished into the clouds, and she whispered, "I was born down there." Marcus looked out beside her. "Then it's time you saw what else is out here." The journey through space was not smooth. They passed asteroid fields, pirate zones, and broken relay gates. Once, they were nearly caught by patrol ships. Rel swerved into a debris field to lose them. The ship shook, and Leary cried out. But Marcus held her hand tight. "We're okay," he said. "Just a bump in the stars." On the 3rd day, something strange happened. Leary woke up shaking, her skin glowing faintly, even in sleep. Marcus rushed to her side. This time, she Wasn't screaming, she was speaking words from an old tongue. Rel heard it and went pale. "That's High Tongue," he whispered. Marcus asked, "What's that?" "It's the royal language of the Lost Empire," Rel replied. "No one's heard it in 1,000 years." When Leary woke up, she looked confused. "I saw a place," she said softly. "A temple with silver walls, a door that opened when I touched it." Marcus and Rel exchanged glances. "Do you know where it is?" Marcus asked. She closed her eyes. I think I can feel it." That was when they changed course. Rel hesitated. "Marcus, if this place is real, we'll have more than just soldiers chasing us." Marcus nodded. "Then we fly fast." Then new route took them into the outward belt, a dead zone filled with broken satellites and forgotten moons. Leary grew weaker each day, her glow fading, her voice softer. "I think I'm running out," she said. Marcus asked. "Running out of consent." "Running out of what?" "Time," she whispered. He didn't sleep. He spent hours watching the scanner. Watching her breathe, the more he learned, the more he understood. She wasn't just a child. She was the last link to something ancient, a power hidden away so long ago that even stars had forgotten it. And now, because he had taken her hand on a rainy street, he was part of this story too, and he wouldn't walk away from it. Not now, not ever. After a long silence, Leary spoke again. "If I don't reach the temple, I'll disappear." Marcus's heart clenched. "No," he said. "You won't." "I've seen too many disappear," she said. "I won't let that happen to you," he replied. "I'd carry you across every star if I had to." And that's what he did when she was too tired to stand. He carried her when her skin felt cold. He wrapped her in blankets when she cried. He held her until the tears stopped. He wasn't her real father, but to her, he was more than that. Rel finally pointed to a blinking light on the map. "That's the moon," she described. He said, "Are you ready for this?" Marcus nodded. He looked at Leary. She opened her eyes just enough to say, "I'm ready." They approached the forgotten moon, and from the window, they saw it, a silver temple buried in the ice, waiting like it had been calling her all along. The chase was almost over, but the real story was just beginning. The moon was cold, silent, and forgotten. Ice stretched across the land like glass. Winds howled over broken stones and cracked towers. But deep beneath the frozen surface, something ancient waited, something sacred, something watching. Rel landed the ship near the base of a jagged mountain. Steam hissed as the landing gears touched the icy ground. Marcus stepped out first, his boots crunching against the frost. He turned and helped Leary down the ramp. She was weak, her legs trembling, her glow barely visible, but her eyes were focused. Locked onto the cliff ahead, "There," she whispered, pointing at the rock face. Marcus followed her gaze and saw it. A circle lashed into the stone, not large, but perfect, symbols carved into the wall around it. The same symbols that had once danced across Leary's skin. "She's really the key," Rel muttered behind them. Marcus nodded slowly. "And this is the door." Leary stepped forward. She touched the circle with her palm. Nothing happened at first, but then the wind stopped. The air turned still, heavy, and the door began to glow. A deep hum echoed from inside the mountain. The stone cracked open in the middle, splitting into two halves. Light poured out from the crack, soft, silver, ancient. Then the door opened, completely revealing a long corridor made of shining crystal. Leary turned to Marcus. "I remember this place," she said, "from my dreams." Marcus said nothing, just held her hand and walked with her into the unknown. The hallway was silent, but not empty, on both sides. Statues stood, tall creatures with wings, horns, and flowing robes. Eyes made of crystal seemed to follow them. Leary didn't seem afraid. but Marcus kept his hand near his sidearm, just in case, at the end of the hallway. They reached a wide chamber. In the center stood a throne, simple, elegant, glowing with faint blue light. Above it floated a crystal, large, clear, and pulsing like a heartbeat. Leary walked toward it, slow and careful, when she stood beneath the crystal. The ground beneath her lit up, symbols spread outward from her feet. The chamber began to vibrate, and then a voice echoed, not from speakers, but from the very walls. Blood of the first star, why have you returned? Marcus stepped forward, but Leary raised her hand. She looked up at the crystal and said, I never left, I was taken. The light from the crystal flared. If you are true, the temple will know. Suddenly, a beam of light shot down from the crystal, hitting Leary in the chest. She cried out, falling to her knees. Marcus ran forward, but an invisible force pushed him back. He slammed against the wall, unable to move. Leary? He shouted, but she didn't answer. Her body floated into the air. Arms spread, eyes glowing bright. The chamber around them shimmered, and images appeared in the light. A woman, tall, blue-skinned like Leary, dressed in royal robes, stood before a crowd. She held a baby, wrapped in a soft silver cloth behind her. Ships burned in the sky. A voice, her voice, echoed. They will come for her. They will fear her, but she must live. The memory shifted. The baby was handed to a servant. That servant ran through war, through fire, through shadows, and then the image faded. Leary was lowered gently to the ground. The throne lit up, glowing in soft gold. The invisible force let go of Marcus, and he ran to her side. Are you all right? He asked, kneeling. She opened her eyes slowly. I saw her, she whispered, my mother. Tears filled her eyes, but she smiled. She gave up everything so I could live. Marcus nodded. And now you've come home. But the temple was not finished. Another voice echoed through the chamber. He who stands with the air must face the trial. Before Marcus could ask what that meant, the floor beneath him changed. He was standing alone in a different room. The sky above was red, and shadows moved around him. Figures appeared, enemies from his past. Soldiers, raiders, faces he had tried to forget. One stepped forward. You failed them, Marcus, it said. You let them die. Marcus gritted his teeth. He had seen friends fall, civilians burn. He had lived with the guilt for years. But now, standing in the illusion, he shouted, I failed many, but I will not fail her. The shadows vanished. The red sky turned to white. And Marcus was back in the chamber. The crystal glowed warm above them. Trial complete. The voice said, Bond accepted. Leary stood now, stronger, brighter. She looked at him with wide eyes. It called you my guardian, she said. Marcus smiled. Then I guess I'm stuck with you. She ran into his arms, and he hugged her tightly. They had survived the temple, the truth, the trial. But outside, danger still waited. And the final storm was coming. The temple door closed behind them with a deep echo. Outside, the frozen wind howled, but Marcus and Leary no longer felt the cold. Something had changed inside both of them. Leary stood taller now, not in body, but in spirit. Her skin glowed softly in the dim light, and her steps no longer trembled. Marcus looked at her and saw not just a lost girl, but someone becoming something greater. We did it, she whispered, looking up at the pale stars. He nodded. You did more than that. Before they could take another step toward the ship, a distant sound rumbled in the sky. Then another. Leary turned, eyes wide. They found us. Black ships broke through the clouds above, 5 of them, sleek and armed. They hovered like beasts ready to strike. Searchlights swept the surface. Locking on to the temple's entrance, Rel's voice crackled through the cum on Marcus's belt. Get back here now, we've got company. Marcus grabbed Leary's hand. They ran over the ice as the first blast shook the ground behind them. The snow exploded, fire burning blue where the beam hit. Soldiers began dropping again, dozens this time. They wore armor thicker than before, and their weapons buzzed with electric heat. Marcus pushed Leary behind a broken rock. "I'll hold them," he said. Pulling his blaster, she grabbed his arm. "No, I'll do it," before he could stop. Her Leary stepped into the open. The soldiers froze when they saw her. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't hiding. She raised her hand, and her skin glowed brighter than ever. Symbols danced across her arms and cheeks. Her voice rang out not loud, but clear. "I am Leary of the first star, daughter of She who burned for peace." Some of the soldiers dropped their weapons in shock. Others hesitated. The commander stepped forward. "You are a child," he growled. "You are a mistake." Leary looked at Marcus. He stepped beside her and said, "Then I guess I'm the mistake's father." He raised his blaster and fired first. The battlefield lit up, but this time, they weren't alone. The temple itself answered. Light shot from its walls, striking the sky. Old defense systems activated, targeting the black ships. One exploded, spinning into the ice. Chaos erupted, but Leary stood firm. Her voice called out in the old tongue, and one by one, the enemy systems shut down. Soldiers dropped to their knees. Others simply ran. The commander tried to aim at her butt before he could fire. Marcus tackled him into the snow. The fight was short, brutal, but Marcus stood victorious. Breathing hard, he turned to Leary. She was still standing, glowing with soft light. But her body swayed. Marcus rushed to catch her as she collapsed into his arms. "I'm okay," she whispered. "Just tired." "You did it," he said softly. Brushing her hair from her face, "No," she replied. "We did it." Rel landed the ship nearby. Steam blasting as the ramp dropped, he ran out, looking shocked. "What did you do?" he asked. Marcus looked down at Leary. "She told the stars who she is." They boarded the ship. Flying off the moon as fire still burned behind them, Leary slept the whole trip, peacefully, for once. No nightmares, no screams, just rest, back. On a quiet moon, far from war and fire, Marcus built something new. A small home, simple but strong, with a garden, a bed by the window, and walls full of warmth. And one day, Leary came outside with a question in her eyes. "Am I still your daughter?" she asked. Marcus looked at her, smiled, and knelt down. "You were my daughter the moment you asked me that in the rain," he said. "But now you're not just mine. You're a light to the stars." She ran into his arms, laughing through tears. "You're my dad," she whispered. "And you're my heart," he replied. Years passed. Leary grew strong, wise, and kind. People came from distant systems to meet her not as a queen, but as someone who turned pain into peace. And beside her, always, was Marcus, a man with rough hands and a quiet soul, the only one who ever called her daughter before she had a crown. Because the story didn't start with power. It started with a cold street, an empty bowl, and a man who didn't walk past.